My friends, when it comes to composting at home, I've always felt it's not just about reusing kitchen scraps. To me, it's like a journey toward green living, a way we have conversations with nature, a way to nurture our gardens, our homes, and even our souls. Whether you're in your 30s, 50s, or 70s, I believe all of us have at some point asked ourselves, how can I live more simply, waste less, and leave something good behind for the next generation? And composting, though it may sound small, is one of the most meaningful answers. But let's be real, not everyone gets it right from the start. On this journey, I've seen so many people, myself included, make some mistakes that seem simple, but end up making composting inefficient, time-consuming, or even a waste of precious space. That's why today, I want to share with you, honestly and warmly, the 5 most common mistakes people make when composting at home. My hope is that after watching this, you'll have a clearer picture and know how to adjust. That way, every time you toss in a banana peel, some coffee grounds, or wilted veggies, you'll actually see them turn into rich brown gold that nourishes your garden, not just a smelly pile of waste. Number 1, the bin is too big. A lot of people think the bigger the bin, the better. I once saw a couple in the suburbs buy a plastic barrel as large as a water tank, hoping that if they just dumped scraps in for a year, by the end they'd have a mountain of compost. But you know what? Compost doesn't really work that way. When a bin is too big, air can't circulate properly, moisture builds up, and instead of that sweet, earthy smell, you end up with a sour, rotten odor that even your neighbors might complain about. I want you to picture this. Imagine you've got a giant pot of soup, filled to the brim, and you leave it outside without stirring or covering. What happens? It spoils fast. Compost is no different. In a huge bin, the good microbes can't do their job well because they don't get enough oxygen. And if you don't balance browns like dry leaves or shredded paper with greens like veggie scraps and coffee grounds, what you get isn't fertilizer. It's just a soggy, smelly mess. A friend of mine made this mistake. He used a giant industrial barrel 3 times bigger than his household needed. After 6 months, he was frustrated. Everything inside was wet, slimy, and stinky. Eventually, he had to dump out half the mess and switch to a smaller bin, about the size of a large bucket. Suddenly, it all changed. The compost became fluffy, earthy, and perfect for his backyard veggies. From a scientific point of view, a compost bin works best when it's just big enough to keep heat steady and oxygen flowing. A bin that's too large is like trying to run a marathon in a tiny, stuffy room. You'll run out of air fast. A smaller bin, on the other hand, is easy to turn, easy to monitor for moisture, and makes composting feel manageable and even enjoyable. Have you ever had this experience? Maybe you were excited to set up a giant bin in your yard, only to feel overwhelmed months later by the smell and the space it took up? If so, congratulations. You've learned one of the most valuable lessons in composting. Sometimes, less but just enough is the smartest choice. Number 2, not using all the materials you already have. I've seen many families throw away things that could easily be turned into compost. For example, they'll toss in veggie scraps or leaves but throw eggshells in the trash, pour coffee grounds down the drain, or sell old newspapers to recycling instead of using them in the pile. The truth is, all of those can become powerful ingredients for rich, healthy soil. Think about it. Every day in your kitchen, you're producing compost gold. Banana peels, carrot tops, used tea bags, coffee grounds, even hair from your hairbrush or paper napkins, as long as they're not dyed. If you know how to collect and combine them, you'll realize that every meal doesn't just feed your family. It's also quietly feeding your garden. But if you waste them, your trash pile doubles while your compost pile starves. A friend of mine, she lives in an apartment in the city, once told me she didn't think she had enough scraps to compost. But after I showed her how to save her daily coffee grounds, used filters, spoiled veggies from the fridge, and even dry leaves she gathered from the park nearby, she was shocked. In just 2 months, her little compost bin produced rich black compost, enough to feed her pots of herbs on the balcony. She laughed and said, "I never knew I'd been throwing away treasure every single day." Scientifically, composting needs balance. Greens like fruit peels and coffee grounds give nitrogen, while browns like dry leaves and shredded paper give carbon. If you only add one type, the process slows down, or worse, smells bad. Using a wide variety of materials not only saves waste, but also creates that perfect balance microbes love, the golden recipe for fast, healthy compost. So ask yourself, are you wasting valuable materials in your kitchen right now? Have you ever thought that even the paper napkin you tossed could have become food for the soil? Try looking at your trash with new eyes, the eyes of someone who wants to turn waste into value. You might be surprised at how much potential is hiding in plain sight. Number 3, waiting too long before using it. Another very common mistake is letting compost sit in the bin for way too long. Many people think it has to be super mature or absolutely perfect before they can use it. I've seen folks let a pile sit for a year or more, only to be disappointed when it dried out, hardened, and lost much of its nutrition. The truth is, compost is like baking bread. If you pull it out too early, it's raw. But if you leave it in too long, it burns and loses its flavor. With compost, the sweet spot is when it looks crumbly, smells like a forest floor after rain, and you can't tell what the original scraps were. Usually that happens in just 2 to 4 months, depending on your conditions. I remember my neighbor, Mr. Tran, telling me, compost is like raising kids. When the time is right, you have to let them go out into the world. If you hold on too long, they stop growing. And he's right. If you let compost sit forever, you not only lose space for new scraps, but you also miss the chance to feed your plants at the exact time they need it most. Fresh compost is full of life. That's when it does the most good. Scientifically speaking, compost left too long can lose minerals through leaching or become too rich in humic acids, which can harden the soil instead of improving it. That's the opposite of what we want. So trust your senses. When your compost looks and smells ready, use it. Don't wait for perfection. Perfection is overrated. Timing is everything. Have you ever hesitated, leaving your compost pile untouched for months, thinking it wasn't ready? If so, remember this. Compost doesn't need to be flawless. It just needs to be used at the right time, when your plants are thirsty for nourishment. When you do that, you'll see life spring up, in the soil, in the garden, and at your family's table. Number 4, not rotating between multiple bins. This is a big one. I see so many people use only one compost bin. It sounds simple, but it creates a major problem. When that bin is full, you have no choice but to wait months for it to break down before you can add new scraps. And meanwhile, your kitchen keeps producing waste every single day. What happens then? Either you give up, or you go back to throwing scraps in the trash. One of my friends, who lives in a small apartment with just a balcony garden, struggled with this. He only had one bin, and it constantly jammed. When I suggested he use 2 small bins instead of one big one, everything changed. One bin held the old batch to rest and decompose, while the other collected new scraps daily. When the first batch was done, he could use it, empty the bin, and rotate. He told me it turned composting from a chore into a rhythm, like a natural cycle that just flowed. From a practical standpoint, having 2 or 3 bins creates a mini compost factory at home. It's like cooking. One pot is simmering, one is ready to serve, and another is just starting. By rotating, you always have compost ready to use, and your waste stream never gets interrupted. Have you ever had your compost bin overflow with no idea what to do next? Have you ever felt frustrated because there was no space for new scraps? If so, try this simple change, just 2 bins. You'll see the difference right away. Composting, like life, often works best when there's balance and good planning. Number 5, putting the bin in the wrong place. The last common mistake is placing the compost bin in a poor location. Some people leave it in direct sunlight, where it dries out and kills the microbes. Others put it in dark, damp corners where it gets waterlogged and smelly. I've even seen bins crammed against house walls or right along walkways, where they take up space and cause annoyance. I once visited a farmer who kept his compost bin under a mango tree at the edge of his yard. It was perfect, shaded, well ventilated, and close enough to water when needed. His compost was always fluffy, never smelly, and his plants thrived. He told me, composting is like planting a seed. You need the right environment for life to grow. Science backs this up too. Compost needs a stable temperature, moderate light, and especially the right level of moisture. Putting it in the wrong spot is like planting a tree in poor soil. You can't expect it to flourish. So ask yourself, where is your compost bin right now? Does rain leak into it? Does it get scorched by the sun? Does it sit so close to your living space that it feels inconvenient? If you answered yes to any of those, maybe it's time to move it. One small change in location can turn composting from a hassle into something enjoyable and sustainable. Now, I want to invite you to reflect. Are you making one of these 5 mistakes in your composting journey? And if you are, how will you adjust to make this process smoother, lighter, and more effective for you and your family? If you found this video helpful, I'd love for you to leave a comment below and share your composting story. Who knows, your story might inspire someone else. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so we can continue walking this green path together. Living simply, living fully, and leaving behind something meaningful for the next generation.